Zach Greenberg.
I'm Abigail Rockland.
And we're both here with the OU Accelerator this summer, live with Yosef Gillers, founder of GrowTorah from Cohort 1 of the OU Accelerator.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us. So to kick it off, Yosef, you want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure.
Like where you worked, how you got to here today?
Yeah, lots of, it's kind of like a river, a stream. It flows down a mountain over lots of bumps and rocks and crazy adventures. Sometimes predictable, sometimes not. So I'd say that's kind of my life story in a nutshell. Yeah, I did my undergraduate degree out in St. Louis at WashU in environmental studies. And at the time I was working in the summers and summer camps, and during the year I was involved with NCSY and B'nai Akiva as like a mentor and advisor, and really loved the experiential education that I was getting to do in all those settings. And so from there went for some yeshiva time, and I went and studied in YU for a bit in their smicha program, and at that time realized that I really wanted to try to find a way to fuse my passions and bring things together of the environment and nature-based education and experiential Jewish education. And in the summers when I was in YU, I was working with this organization called Amir, doing summer camp garden programs at Jewish summer camps. And that was amazing and really exciting and energizing for me. And I realized that there's this amazing opportunity here to bring this magic of summer camp Jewish gardens into day schools. And so we piloted the first program at Mosheva Ba'ir, which is housed at the Frisch School. And the program went beautifully, and we grew a ton of things, and the kids were really inspired. And Frisch said, sure, let's go for it. Let's try it. Let's pilot the program in the fall. So the fall of 2014, we started to pilot like a high school farming club, Torah farming club, and added on a Mishmar class. And then from there, was able to quit my full-time job working at MTA and go ahead and start the organization full-time in about, when was it? Full-time in 2016. So 2 years of piloting the program, doing it kind of part-time, and then I was able to launch it full-time.
Really cool. So it's like a school club, like all the way became like a full company like that. Like it's pretty funny. That's great. Just curious, like I know you touched on this a little bit, but what got you, I mean, how long have you been like passionate about the environment for, and like when did that get started?
Sure. Nature and the outdoors is a huge part of my upbringing. We had a garden growing up and a compost in my backyard, and I didn't like the compost, but I appreciate it now. I'm the youngest of 6, so I always got stuck taking it outside. And so we were always involved in that, and my family would always go on hiking trips in the summer and canoe trips and just as much time outdoors as possible. My mom didn't really let us watch TV, which also didn't super appreciate, but it really paid off because I learned to be entertained in the outdoors and with creative pursuits. So it's always been a part of my life, and I'm blessed to get to make it my work as well now.
Can you tell us a little bit about what GrowTorah actually does now?
Totally, that's a great question. So GrowTorah creates educational Torah garden programs for Jewish day schools, and we focus on experiential Torah learning and environmental Torah learning through nature-based education. And so our main focus is really on our elementary and our nursery programs, although we do have partnerships and programs from nursery all the way through 12th grade. And we cover 4 core educational values, where each of those values is a part of every single session in our gardens. And so those 4 values are: number 1, incubating emunah, filling our students with a love and a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and also wrestling with what that actually means to believe. Dropping a seed in the ground is an act of faith, and it's a test of faith. And so getting both the beauty of nature and also the challenge and the struggle of faith. Number 2 is environmental stewardship. And so understanding our obligation and our responsibility towards the earth and all of its creatures. And again, wrestling with the challenges that comes with that. And number 3 is cultivating compassion for all creatures. So not just the earth, but also specifically, what is Tsar Balei Chaim? How does it apply and manifest in the garden when we're dealing with the butterflies and the bees and different pollinators, beneficial insects and pests? and exploring all of that. And the fourth is living tzedakah. We have this amazing heritage and obligation of tzedakah. Much of it is rooted in agriculture with peya, leket, shich, hamaser, and we try to bring that to life with our students in the gardens. And we actually do a reversed maaser where we give 90% of what we grow to local food pantries. And that's a concept we borrow from a place called Urban Adama out in California. They came up with that, and it's a beautiful idea. So,
what are the reverse 90%?
Yeah, instead of giving away
awesome.
10%, you give away 90%.
That's so cool. So, who is your clientele or people that you cater towards, generally?
Yeah, so we're our primary target audience is really the modern Orthodox day schools. We love all Jews, all people. We find that our programs have the most resonance in those programs and in that population. And so there's about 160 modern Orthodox day schools across North America, according to the latest Avichai census that we had access to. And we're currently at 12 of them. So we're like almost 10% there, like 7.8% market saturation, I believe. But we've got a long way to go because we want to bring our program to every single Jewish day school.
It's really cool that you even said it like that. Like, I feel like most people would be like proud of the fact that they even got 12, but you're kind of like, we're not even close to there yet. Like,
I'm proud that we're not 0%, and I'm excited that there's a lot more to do. Yes.
Wow.
My work is not done.
Do you have a garden in all of those schools?
Yeah, so when I say we're partnered with those schools, it means we've created a garden at that school, a physical garden, whether that means it's in a side yard, on a rooftop, or on anywhere in between. And that garden can be in containers, in boxes, and pots, or in the ground, actual soil. And we try to use all organic, and we're trying to actually move more towards regenerative agriculture, where you're building kind of sustained systems where you don't have to, you're extracting just as much as you're putting into the system, and you're creating closed loop cycles so that you're not just extracting and taking from the earth, but really living in concert with it.
And how much food do you grow in all of your schools?
That is an amazing question. We are trying to get better at actually quantifying how much we grow, but we have over 60 garden beds, which comes out to a few thousand square feet of gardens. And the poundage that we estimate is probably 500 to 1,000 pounds of vegetables a year is what we're growing. That is,
and then 90% of that is being donated.
Yeah, it's a very rough estimate. And especially this year with the pandemic, everything kind of shifted. So it's hard to say.
So how do you teach the kids about, I guess, what is GrowTorah? Like, can you give an example of like a lesson? Like, do you guys follow a curriculum?
Totally.
Like, how does it work?
That's a great question. So, like I said, we have our 4 core values. So we have lessons that kind of relate to each of those different values. And then we also have an entire Parsha-based curriculum where we have something that connects to at least one of those lessons that we can tie in to, that's based in that week's Parsha. And much of that actually comes from Kanfei Nesharim, which was the only other Orthodox environmental organization. And we had partnered with them a little bit for a few years. And then we both decided that it would be mutually beneficial if we merged. And so we absorbed them and merged with them. And that was a really cool learning process to learn how to merge 2 organizations. And that was complete in December 2019. And so one of the incredible gifts that they gave to us in the merger process is thousands of pages of curricular material and articles that Rabbanim and scholars wrote about various environmental topics. And actually, as we speak right now, the GrowTorah summer interns are actually cataloging all of that. And then we're going to be kind of organizing and editing all of that to be reusing it. But last year's summer intern took all of Kanfei Nesharim's Parsha curricula, Parsha lessons, and adapted them for garden-based lessons. So that's also a really big product. So for example, let's take Parshas Bereishis. Le'ovda u'leshomra is like a classic phrase in the Jewish environmental world, to work and to protect. What does that mean, to work and to protect? The garden's a fantastic place to actually live that metaphor. And so we bring the students in and we're working in the garden. And so we have to work in the garden, and then we also have to protect it. And what does that mean for us to actually do? And so we have the students kind of practice and experience and understand how much work goes into the garden to just grow the food. And then what do we have to do to protect it from pests and from disease and from, difficult, challenging, extreme weather. So many different factors go into it. And so how do we protect it? And then that's a fantastic launch pad to then discuss, okay, this garden is a microcosm of our lives and our relationship with the entire earth. So what does that mean for us and our relationship with the earth in general? And so that's like one of our little micro lessons that we'll teach around Breshit.
Cool.
I would say the general concept with our lessons is kind of like, we love mashalim in Torah education. We love giving mashals, analogies, parables. What's really cool about gardening is it's like everyone's favorite parable. So what we're doing is giving students the experience of the mashal to learn it like 3 levels deeper than if they would just hear the story told as a mashal, as an analogy. So you could say we're experiencing metaphors.
It's just so awesome that you were totally able to take your passion of the environment and like your passion of Torah and totally merge them. So it's awesome.
It is a really cool blessing, yes.
So since we are here with the accelerator, can you tell us a little bit how you heard about it, what it was like to even apply? You were also part of the first cohort. So sort of what was that like?
So I was keeping a spreadsheet, and we still kind of keep a spreadsheet of like any potential grant opportunities or any like programs that we want to be involved in or be a part of. Just to kind of keep track of like what things we should be doing and learning from or benefiting from. And so the OU Accelerator wasn't on that yet, but I had a few other accelerator programs that were, and had applied and not gotten them. And the day that the accelerator launched, I believe I got the email forwarded to me by 5 or 6 friends.
That's how you know it's a good fit.
So, I immediately got to work on the application. Didn't submit it until 11:59 p.m. the night of the deadline of 12 a.m.
No way.
100%.
You always wait.
So someone was asking me, am I a precrastinator or a procrastinator? I'm both. Like, if I get excited about something, I get started on it right away, and then I don't finish it until it's due. Like, I pause and like move on to something else for a while, and then like, the last few hours, like the adrenaline's pumping. So it's not great, but a good amount of the time I get things done by deadlines. So I got the application in, and the cool thing was a friend of mine and a mentor of mine told me, Adina Pupko, who's the associate director of the Natan Fund. She encouraged me early on when I was starting GrowTorah. She's like, apply to, don't apply to everything, but apply to some grants, because just the process of application will teach you things. It forces you to refine your vision and understand things on a more complex level sometimes, and also in a different way. And so that was 100% true with the OU Accelerator application. It just forced me to kind of like redefine and re-examine, everything about what I was building at the time. I think we were like, when I was applying, we had just received our 501c3 determination letter from the IRS. So, I mean, it was like a year-long process.
So you just became a company?
So no, we incorporated as a company in October of 2017, October 25th, 2017. That's our certificate of incorporation.
Nice.
But yeah, then so that was the date of incorporation, and then submitted the application, then as well for to be determined as a nonprofit, as a 501c3. And it took the government like 9 months to approve it or something, or 6 months. I don't know. It took a while. So it was, we're still a very young organization. And so when we applied, I learned a ton from the application process, and it was nerve-wracking, and but also the adrenaline, just like the stress, just really got me excited. So
it's cool that it's almost like the education piece happened while you were applying.
Totally. Not more than the rest of it, but definitely a significant part of what I gained from the application, from the accelerator, not close to more than, but like I learned a lot. I'll just say it like that. I learned so much from the application process. And then the pitch night. I mean, all the different stages, the application, the interviews, the Zoom interviews, the in-person interviews, and then the pitch
They had
night.
Zoom interviews before Corona?
They did, yeah. The funny thing about being a small nonprofit is like the Jewish nonprofit world, some different startups that are like national have been using Zoom like for a while, including us. We had Zoom meetings. We would switch between Zoom and Google Meets, but yeah, so it was when the rest of the world was forced to use Zoom, we were like half a step ahead.
Wow. How is pitch night? Like, what was that like when you found out that you made it that far and then the actual giving it over to front of like a huge crowd?
Terrifying, like absolutely terrifying. Oh my God. Like, I have a few friends who work at the OU, so they came down to see me and they're like trying to like talk to me beforehand. And I just like, my heart was racing and I was just like, I can't talk. I'm going to get short of breath. Like I was just like drinking like liters of water to like stay hydrated. And like, even still, when I got up to pitch, I still just like, I got super dry mouth and I like paused in the middle and drank a bunch of water. From my reusable bottle, of course, so I got to show everybody that I practice what I preach. Actually, still this bottle. This is one of the longest I've been able to not lose a bottle for, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I've been carrying a bottle around since 9th grade, so that's 2001. 19 years, yeah. And this is probably like more than my 20th reusable bottle, but it's better than like 10,000 little disposable bottles.
Are those all stickers on it?
Yeah, I got some good stickers. Do you want a tour of my bottle?
I guess not right now, but I like the GrowTorah one.
Yeah, just the GrowTorah one is, there we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
How big was GrowTorah when you applied? Like, how many people were on your team? Like, were you even working full time yet on it?
So that's a great call. It was just me full time at that when I applied. We had Sarah Just Michael, who now is full time, switched from part time, like roughly quarter time in the fall of the year that we pitched. And then that winter, she switched to full-time in the middle of us being in the cohort. I had been full-time since the beginning of GrowTorah, and that was actually a lesson I had learned. Can I share this now?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So a lesson I had learned before I started GrowTorah was from a failed venture that my friends and I had been playing with for many, many years, for like 10 or 15 years. It was a kids clothing company called Applefont. You can find archives of it on the internet. They're really cute characters. It was going to be a sustainable kids clothing brand with adorably awesome characters. And we failed because none of us was able to pursue it full time. That was what I would say is probably the number one reason. There's many reasons why things don't go well for businesses. For us, that was definitely something. We knew there were things we needed to do and we needed to be full-time to actually be able to pursue it. And then there's, siyata d'shmaya and everything else and good business acumen that comes along with it. But we weren't able to put full-time in. And so when I started GrowTorah, I said to myself, and I kind of discussed with my wife, like, okay, I got to give this an honest effort if I want to really try to make this happen. And I need a few months to try this full-time. And so we saved up and I was able to go full-time to test it out. And thank God, within the first 3 or 4 months of testing it out at various schools, I got enough traction that showed that the proof of concept was there, and the financial trajectory we were on the right financial trajectory for our family, for us to be able to make it work, and for the organization to be able to make it work. So yeah, I've been full time on GrowTorah since 2016, January 2016.
Wow.
And once you were in the accelerator, what are like the highlights that stick out to you?
Excellent question. So some of the sessions, they were basically classes. Like the way I described this is it was like a mini MBA. And so some of the classes were fantastic, where I just learned a lot from that actual class. I have 4 notebooks, like these hand notebooks of just my notes, like furiously writing. And I still have them, and I go through them very sporadically and occasionally to just like read lessons. So I'd say some of the lessons and the classes were really fantastic from the speakers that came in, both in-house from the OU Hearing, I remember like one name that sticks out is I think it was Craig Goldstein from the Chief Marketing Officer. I just remember him discussing to us what a project brief is supposed to be and realizing like the level of sophistication the gold, like the goal or the gold standard is like this level of sophistication that exists for like everything across the board. And knowing that like our marketing efforts need to be like that. And then being able to kind of translate and transfer different disciplines is really exciting. So like learning something about marketing and then saying, okay, but like really even our programming should be just as sophisticated. And so we should have a project brief for any new, effort we're doing. We don't yet still, but the fact that we know that it exists. Yeah. And that honestly, like a lot of the things, like we learned them, we tried to implement some level of it, but like, we're not getting to the level of the OU, this like 100-and-something-year-old, massive, amazingly successful organization, in 4 years. But knowing kind of like being able to set our sights and understand like where we need to head for like all the different aspects of what the organization, the different departments of the organization was really, really, really helpful. The mentors were fantastic, getting like one-on-one with just like people who we could just honestly like, some of them were like, yeah, let's set up times to call. Some of them were just like, just text me when you have a question and I will answer. And so got amazing, amazing advice. Some just like to do things and some in crisis mode, which was really helpful to have that support. And then the cohort, getting to kind of meet other folks and having community of other, nonprofit ventures is really, really helpful.
Do you think, I'm just curious, can you now me and Abigail have seen how the OU Accelerator runs like virtually, but we never got to really experience it in person. Do you think you can run through for us like how like a typical week was like at being part of the OU Accelerator?
Yeah, so I think there were 3 or 4 in-person sessions where it was like 3 days straight, and it was nonstop, super intense, and it was just stacked, like classes or workshops, like whatever the sessions were, like a full day 9 to 5, and it was just like crazy information overload, and also like workshopping and also like existential questions.
Why do
just
you
like
exist?
yeah, just like literally like the questions you need to ask yourself when you're starting any venture, whether it's for profit or not for profit, is like, what is the problem you seek to address? Like, why do you exist? And so being forced to articulate that over and over again with a group of people who've been hearing you say the same thing for like, over the course of the year. Like the first sessions, we'd like hear each other the first time. And then by like the third day of that, we could all give each other's introductions because we knew like the kind of like the elevator pitches of everyone. And like being forced to constantly like give over your elevator pitch to like this like person who's coming to present to us. And like that itself, the workshop of that, like seeing other people give their elevator pitches and like hearing the feedback on them. And then also like you, like learning how to give feedback on an elevator pitch and understanding it and understanding how that then translates like kind of upwards. Like your elevator pitch is like this very succinct thing. That's like a sales pitch basically. But understanding the relationship of like your sales to like your actual content and your product and like, what do you actually do sometimes needs to be refined because what you thought you did isn't actually that. And that's where like the existential crisis comes in because we're like, oh my God, I'm a failure. And it's like, no, you're not. You're human and you're learning. And at least you're acknowledging this at this stage as opposed to like 30 years down the road and like tens of millions of dollars have gone through your bank account and like you've never been doing what you set out to do. So it's great to kind of redirect and recalibrate early on. And learn.
Always good to learn.
Did that kind of answer your question of like?
Well, that sounds like that was only like 3 days though. Like,
so there were like 3 or 4 3-day sessions every couple of months. Like there was like a 3-day session, and then 3 months later there'd be another 3-day session.
Wow.
And that way we all didn't have to it happened to be that 2 of the 3 were like in prime gardening season, so I actually had to like not teach in the gardens for those days, and it was like a real bummer, but it was worth it. Like the investment in my time was worth it. But yeah, anyone who was doing their ventures full time had to take off from the actual work of the venture to invest in the venture to do that, and that's worth it 100%. But it was hard.
So what was it like? Like you're a startup. Like you obviously saw this go from like a club to like a company, now you're accepted into the accelerator. What was it like being with all these other companies that were also, like you see, they also doing great things, and you're all like working together, trying to grow together? Like what was the collaboration like?
Tense and intense because we're collaborating and we're competing with each other. So in this instance, we're all in the same cohort. We're all getting the same donor dollars from the OU, as long as we completed our assignments. So I assume everyone else got theirs. I know we got ours. That was good to hold that over our heads. Like, you have to submit your finalized, business plan, otherwise you don't get your grant check. So yeah, it was really, at times it was really difficult because you're learning the same things that they're learning, and each of us learns at a different speed. So sometimes, like, we get the lesson and we get like what we need to change about our organization, and that's great. And sometimes, like, we didn't, and like other people would just be like, Yosef, like, don't you get it? It's like, no, I actually don't. Like, I'm a slow learner and I need to take my time and like experience this. So like the frontal lectures were tough for me. The workshops were great.
Coming from a teacher.
Yeah. So, well, that's why I strive to be experiential and interactive and not just lecture the whole time. So it was, so like part of it was really difficult for sure. And like good difficult, not bad difficult, the good, the kind of difficult that you learn from, but it was hard. And so, yeah. And some folks like kind of moved on from their ventures or changed courses or who knows what, especially now with the pandemic, a lot of people kind of have had to totally revisit what they're doing. And that's sad. And so like I'm still in touch with some of the people from my cohort. And we help each other with lots of different things, little things, big things.
And now a year after you graduated, like how have you grown and gotten and taken what you've learned from the accelerator and applied it to GrowTorah?
Great question. So the number one thing is we got accepted into the Upstart Venture Accelerator, which was one of the accelerator programs that we had been applying to before the OU Accelerator. What's really cool is as we're experiencing that, it's designed to be kind of like for later stage organizations, not later, but like growth stage organizations as opposed to like seed stage. Hearing from just like being asked, a lot of the questions are the same questions we need to ask, but like because we went through the like first round of this in the OU Accelerator, I feel like more prepared and better equipped to handle it now, which is one piece that's really exciting. And another piece is a lot of the lessons that I learned and the things that I kind of gained from the accelerator, they've just kind of like entered into my brain, and that's just like, and an organization, like for Sarah Just Michael, my colleague as well, like she has a significant leadership position in the organization. And so things we learned in the accelerator are kind of like second nature now. And it's funny because to think back like 2 years ago, like we didn't know that this was a thing that we were supposed to do. And now it's like, oh yeah, that's like how, of course that's how we operate. And, so it's, I'd say there's like a lot of that, that we constantly experience.
That's awesome. It means you really internalize what you've learned.
Yeah, the things that I've learned, I've internalized. The things that I haven't, still slowly getting there.
What would you say are your short-term and long-term goals?
Short-term goals, like how short-term? Like 6 months or a year?
Whatever you want.
We'll go with, I'm gonna go like short-term is like a year, long-term is 3 to 5. Is that cool?
Awesome.
Okay. Sorry about the glare that keeps on going in and out. The sun is shining and my face is reacting. Is that okay?
I thought it was the Torah coming off your face.
Yeah, definitely not. The Karen or. All right, whatever. Sorry if this is really painful to look at. Super overexposed. Come on, computer. Expose better.
No, you look fine. Yeah, it's good.
So I'd say that like the 1 year goals is to we're currently taking a lot of our lessons and we're updating them and adapting them so that we can teach them remotely to teachers all across the country. And so the goal for the next year is to get our program in a few schools not in our geographic area. Like we're very much based in the tri-state area, like New York City and Bergen County specifically. We have one garden in Philadelphia where we have like a remote teaching kind of consult relationship with the Kohelet Yeshiva and Lab School. So we want a few more of those, maybe 5 to 10 by this time next year. 5 would be awesome. 10 would be incredible. Even 1 or 2 would be great. So that we can really get better at scaling this concept of educational Torah gardens. And so like our lessons in our curriculum, like they're good. But it's really the pedagogy, the signature pedagogies is I think what's really fantastic. And is what kind of sets us apart is just like thinking of teaching in a different way. It's like taking the classroom outdoors and making the outdoors your classroom, not just for science, but for Torah also. And I think that's probably a really big goal for the next year is to help, especially because of the pandemic. Number one, people are kind of accustomed to kind of remote relationships now. And so the concept of training teachers across the country is not as scary for them. We knew we were capable of doing it, but I think for teachers, they're a lot more comfortable with the concept and might be, might join on with that. And we've been doing a lot of remote garden education and garden-based education, just like with our gardens as our classrooms that we're presenting. And they've been going over really well. We've helped over 100 families start their own gardens and compost at home. And we've been teaching all of our lessons on Zoom the whole spring. So we're confident in that. We're working on the sales piece of actually convincing schools that this is something that'll be worthwhile for them. And pricing it right in pandemic times basically means free. So figuring out how that's going to work for our bottom line. So that's our 1-year goal is working on and tweaking the virtual trainings for schools. I'd say like the 3 to 5 year plan. The 10-year plan is actually to get this in. There are 160 modern Orthodox state schools. We would love to be in all of them within 10 years. I'd say realistically, like 90% of them is like a very realistic goal for the next 10 years. And figuring out that scalable kind of consulting model is going to be key because it's much more cost effective. And especially for schools with smaller budgets, especially after the pandemic, that's vital. And we need to find a way to make this better and cheaper for everyone and more accessible. So we're working on that. That's like and so they're connected. The short term and the long term are very much connected in that. So.
Right, because also if you want to hit up so many schools, it's definitely got to be pitched in a way that's like this works in your benefit, just like ours.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the pitch right now is outdoors is the safest place to be. So the more you can teach outdoors, the safer you'll be and the better and the more effective your education will be this fall. But that's like the immediate pitch. And some folks are able to wrap their heads around that. And some folks are just like, there's way too much stress, understandably so, to even like think of trying to like, wait, I have to deal with the fact that I'm teaching in this pandemic and then also deal with the fact that I'm teaching outdoors. Like that's scary. But for a lot of folks, it's not. And so, the low hanging fruit is to find all the teachers that for whom that's not a scary proposition and just give them the tools and the frameworks to do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're heading there next week, actually.
Wow. So just curious, do you have any cool, good, and whatever word you want to use, inspiring stories that like you've encountered through GrowTorah, like maybe like with a kid or something that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I think out a lot of them. The simple ones are just like when we get emails from parents. Even throughout the pandemic, getting emails from parents being like, my kid recites. It's fun. It's fun to hear like our garden lessons called a Dvar Torah. So like somebody emailed me and was like, my kids love your garden sessions on Zoom. Like I'm teaching from the garden, and like she's like they loved it. Every week they come back. And they're like so excited. It's like the one class they're like excited about, which is really, really flattering and really validating. And she said, yeah, and they love your Dvar Torahs and they share them at the Shabbos table. So I feel like that's like a gold standard in like chinuch is like, does what you teach make it to the Shabbos table? Like then you're doing something.
Also, they bring the whole family outside to the garden is the real question.
There you go. So I mean, listen, the garden is the means and the ends. It's the tool and it's also the, what we're after. So if if everybody has a garden, great. But if everybody loves learning Torah and appreciates our relationship with the earth and our obligation to the earth, that's really what we're after. And so if they're reciting the lessons, I think to me they can teach it. That's the mission in Pirkei Avos, is, you know, like if you can teach someone how to do something, if you can remember it, that's one level. If you can teach someone it, and that's another. If you then do it, that's another. So that's what we're after.
So just wondering, you seem like a very creative guy. Are there any other like side projects that you're working on now?
That's a great question. Yes, it's always a balance because, like I said, I forced myself to do only this when I was starting it, so that I'd be able to focus. But my mind is creative and all over the place. So yeah, I'm in the winter time. I'm a ski instructor up in the Catskills, which is lovely. It also happens to be I'm not teaching in gardens in the winter. We're planning and running the organization, you know, kind of in the winter. But it's just on Sundays, and the occasional powder day. If it snows a lot, I get to drive up and ski. So I love that because I get to share my passion for the outdoors with all people, not just Jews, and like code switch and teach like my like Marabu lessons without the God language and with like a universal frame, which is fun. So I get to do that in the winter. And one of our board members, Rabbi Isaiah Rothstein, is in the process of creating a nonprofit venture for the Jewish community, for the Orthodox Jewish community, specifically for Black Orthodox Jews. He himself happens to be a Jew of color, and his mother is Black and his father is not. He's been involved with the larger movement of like Jews of color initiatives for a while now. And in this current moment that we're living through with, he's just been getting so many requests, and any other Orthodox Black Jew he knows has been just getting inundated with requests that they felt like they really needed an actual organization. So I'm
requests like what?
Like 20 different shuls and schools are like, hey, can you speak to our students and tell them your story about what it's like? Because people don't really even know that there are Black Orthodox Jews, and like don't realize how they're unintentionally being incredibly hurtful, just like with glances and like things that like we don't realize we're doing, just like how to educate our community. So that's been really exciting to help him with that. Been using my like marketing and graphic design skills, and just like strategic lessons that I've learned to help him to get that. Please God, we're actually going to have a Parsha sheet, like a Shabbos Chazon learning Chavrusa worksheet to send out, I think by tonight, which is the latest that it can go out. Yeah, so he's got an incredible team of other folks, other Black Orthodox Jews. So that's really exciting. That's brand new. That's like 2 weeks old. Yeah. Oh, and I'm also the youth director at my shul, so that keeps me busy on Shabbos.
That's a lot.
So getting to create meaningful programs. I mean, the fun thing is I get like carte blanche now. Like before I had to like make non-nature based programs and like non-environmental programs for like indoors for Chagim. Now, like we're only doing outdoor activities. So it's just like, everyone's like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm like, what are you talking about? This is my day job is doing this. This is great. I just get to do all of it. So we're going to the local Teaneck Creek, Puffin Way. You both are from Bergen County, you know Puffin Way. It's a local gem if you don't. And we're doing a trash cleanup as like a chesed mission during the 3 weeks, right before, actually during the 9 days, Shavuot Shechalbo. We're doing a trash cleanup and trail maintenance for my shul at the Puffin Way.
Awesome. So just to wrap up, our last question is twofold. Tips A to someone who wants to be more environmentally conscious, and tips to someone who has an idea and doesn't even know where to start about a venture.
Awesome. Okay. Tips on how to be more environmentally conscious. If consciousness is what you're after, then read. Just like whatever form of reading you do, read. Like read newspapers, read articles, subscribe to an environmental digest, like whatever works for you. If you do social media, like follow some environmental accounts. and just learn about what the local environmental issues are. If environmental action is what you're after, if you like get what environmental issues are and you have the consciousness and you want to commit to action. So I would say actually go to those same resources. You can also check out our resources. We have some like how to be better at not killing the environment, how to do better for the earth, how to better steward the earth. We have resources on that, and actually we'll have a lot more. So I would say those are like the two biggest things, because there's a million ways that you can do better, and the first step is caring about it, and then committing to doing something about it. And for someone who's got an idea and wants to do it, I guess I'm an interpersonal learner, also a social learner. You know, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. So I really think that listen to the lessons and the feedback that people give you, whether it's direct or indirect. If somebody doesn't return your calls and emails, don't get offended, but learn from that. You know, if there's typos in your emails that you're cold emailing to people, you're probably getting nowhere. So like that's like an easy fix. So that's one, is like listen to the feedback and internalize the lessons.
Did you have typos in your emails before? Or is that like big?
I've definitely sent emails with typos.
Oh yeah, everyone does.
No, but I've gotten I apparently I like grammar and I care about it. So it sticks out to me when I see poorly written emails from supposedly professional organizations. No, I mean, it's just like, you know, there's like the word professional or like organized. Like if you're an organization and you're not organized, you're gonna lose the trust of the people you're trying to build it with. So like if you're unprofessional and you're trying to convince people that you are a professional, you know, so and I've made many of those mistakes, and I've learned a lot from that. But I'd say those are some things. Figure out what your creative process is. That's in terms of like taking an idea and actually turning it into something. Tap into your take a creative workshop and understand how you take your ideas from your brain and organize them and translate them into action, because that's gonna happen. And so like I love like pipe cleaners and Play-Doh and like trash, and like how do I take that and make like a little art sculpture and then use that as a lesson for like, okay, I had an idea in my head and I translated it into this like physical 3-dimensional subject of like trash. That's how my creative process works, but everyone has to figure out what theirs is. So take the creative process workshop.
Thank you.
A lot of great tips. Yeah. All right. So
pleasure.
That's all the questions we had. Thanks so much for being here, Yosef. This was awesome. That was really exotic. That was great.
Exotic. Sweet. I'm glad I could be a safari.
Yeah. I wouldn't say safari, but yes. I'd say like a garden.
I just think of, or jungle. I think
Jungle's good. Yeah,
mango.
that's good. Correct.
Exotic fruits.
Yeah. I like dragon fruit. Oh, yeah.
Dragon fruit. Right on. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
listeners,
y'all.
for being here.
My pleasure. I'll catch you all soon.